Okay, welcome everyone. I am Kim Snyder. I am the founder of the API Guys. And you know what? I'm going to work on this volume here just a little bit. Well, let me ask you guys. It looks to me from these levels that I'm kind of loud. So I'll ask you all, am I kind of loud or am I okay? Really? Okay. All right. Well, very good. We'll go with it like this. So again, my name is Kim Snyder. I'm the founder of the API Guys, and I'm really looking forward to this evening. I've got a lot of really interesting things, hopefully, to be able to show you tonight. Let me tell you a little bit about our agenda. My plan is, number one, I'm going to start out with the topic of tonight is how to create a totally dynamic GoToWebinar campaign. And by dynamic, I mean one that can run over and over again, even as dates and times change. So this one's at 5 o'clock, maybe the next one's at 3 o'clock, without regard to all of that, where you really barely have to touch it. It just runs. That's the idea, right? Minimal amount of time invested in running these campaigns, and at the same time, that it absolutely maximizes your return on investment in those GoToWebinar campaigns by increasing your attendance rates, increasing your engagement rates, driving down, as I said, the time and the cost of doing that. And if any of you guys have, like me, ever by mistake missed one of those silly hard-coded dates or things in your campaign, and then sent out a email or a communication at the wrong time, you know how embarrassing that can be. So minimize those mistakes as well. So that is the topic. Now, so what I thought I would do is I'm going to show you the campaign first that registered you all for this webinar and sent you the emails. And that is what I would call a half dynamic campaign. It's more dynamic than more dynamic than what most people will be able to do out of the box with Campaign Builder, but still has a long way to go compared to what I'm going to actually show you as we go on this evening. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to show you the old way, just so that you can have something to compare and contrast and think about what we're doing and why we're doing it. Okay. Then I'm going to show you, I'm going to break off then, and I'm going to just try to very quickly show you some of the tools and techniques that I am going to be using when I show you the totally dynamic campaign, only so that you're not wondering, well, how does it do that? When I show it to you, you kind of understand what it's doing. And then I'm going to show you the campaign, and then finally we're going to do Q&A at the end, and I will take any and all questions that you want to ask, whether it's about GoToWebinar campaigns or anything else that you would like to ask how to get things done in Infusionsoft or Campaign Builder that to you. Well, I'll just take about anything. I love solving Infusionsoft puzzles. That's what I do. So with that as our starting point, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start here and pull this out just a little bit there so that you can see it. So down here, this is the campaign that you all are in, actually. And so what I want to show you is this. So as I said, this is pretty good. It's pretty well automated, but it has a long way to go. So let me tell you what some of the problems are. And where this campaign really could be improved. Now, so some of the things that I think this campaign does well, so we use something called a custom delay timer. It is a Pocket Developer plugin that we developed, and you can see it here. And what that does, you'll see it throughout. It actually can just delay things for like 60 seconds. So you'll see that throughout now. But coming back here, so we are also using our GoToWebinar plugin. So that's this. It has different actions. Register, so is what we're doing here. And what we do with that is we set it up in GoToWebinar. We grab the webinar ID. We put it here in this post. We tell it we want to register anyone who comes through this campaign. We're going to register them, and that we want to put the title in a field, the date in a field, and the join URL in a field, and then head off down the campaign. We're going to apply some tags. Now, you'll notice here, this is one of the things that we're going to try to improve upon, because we've got a bunch of tags throughout this campaign, and I had to actually go set these tags up in advance, right? Well, wouldn't it be nice if I didn't actually have to set up all these tags, if they got set up by themselves automatically as the campaign progressed, right? That's part of what makes it dynamic. So we've got some tags there. We've got some, that wait of 60 seconds is there to give time, GoToWebinar time to, or our plugin time to bring the information back from GoToWebinar. 60 seconds later, it wakes up. Now we're going to use here, you'll see these in the other campaign as well. These are more of our plugins, any date. We call it any date, any format, anywhere, which I will explain in more detail when we get to it, but it basically can take any representation of a date and put it into any other format and put it anywhere you want it. So we've got a bunch of dates here. This part, all these dates, as you'll see when we get to the other campaign, this is all dynamic already, and I'm going to show you that. We got another wait of 120 seconds. And then let's see. So we set we send the confirmation email. Now let's look at this one. So here's another example of, trying to make something dynamic. What are the challenges? Well, so here's a field timer. Now, the reason we can, let me tell you what this field timer does. It runs, as you can see, a reminder one day before the webinar at 5 o'clock. So 5 o'clock my time. You got a reminder, right? Yesterday, 24 hours before. Now, the thing about this is that, first of all, we had to use our date plugin to be able to back a few steps, to be able to put the date in a field, in a date field, so that we could work with this in the first place, right? That was step number one. And we can, in fact, do that. But here is where our next challenge is, and that's the fact that while I can use a field here for the timer, I cannot use a field for the time itself, only the date. So if I have webinars which are changing, like this one's at 5, and if next week or 2 weeks from now that one's going to be at 3, then someone's got to come in here and reconfigure all of these timers, right? And I don't want that. I want to be able to plug in basically my webinar ID, and as near as possible be done, right? Just off we go. So so these hard-coded times in the field timers also present a little bit of a challenge here. And then as we go along, I've got some more reminders. Now, here, I hard-coded these, and I could have, because these are still based on today's date, I actually could have used that field timer instead, because at this point, these are the reminders you got today. So you got one 1 hour before, and I hard-coded it to run at 4 o'clock on 9/11. However, I just as easily could have here used a field timer and here said webinar date, which is what, that has this webinar date in it. And again, just like I did before, I could have said 4 o'clock and here said, wait, oh no, I can't. I thought I could put a 0 in here. No, I cannot. All right, so scratch that. That's why I have them hard-coded. So I could have sworn we could put a 0 in there. But anyway, so that would explain that. So, all right, fine. I got these hard-coded in here. Okay, yes, I do want to delete that. So what this is doing is saying, okay, send out a reminder 1 hour before, send out the reminder right, when it starts to let you guys know that. And then a couple hours after we're all done, let's mark attendance. And again, this is done by our GoToWebinar plugin. You can see we've got the ID in here again. I should probably make this bigger so you guys can see. This time we're telling it we want attendance to mark attendance. Now, here's another example of those darn hard-coded tags, okay? So this is my tag that I have to say, to tag you that you are here. Well, actually, this is that you are here. And then this is for those who are not here, right? We tag them with this. But these are hard-coded. Not only did they have to be created in advance, but I have to go look up what the IDs are for this. And right, and I don't want to do that. So I want to be a lot more flexible than that. And I'm going to show you how we do that here coming up. And then let's see if we have anything else that we want to look at here. I'm sure this bugs you guys as much as it does me. Oh, how I wish they'd let me close that darn thing. Let's see. Oops, I'm back up here. Yeah, and then so these are just once those tags get applied, then as you can probably guess, you're going to get an email so that you can get the replay and stuff. Diana, I am not doing anything about a delay. Are you all seeing this on a bad delay? Is everybody getting a delay, or is it only one person? No? Okay, so most people are saying they are not getting a delay. I hate for you to miss any of this, Diana, but you might want to just log out and log back in because it may be your internet connection. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna keep going here. So this is like, well, this was like version 1 of a semi. Oh, sorry, I misunderstood your comment. That you can't use it in the campaign timer delay. Okay, all right, very good. All right, so we're gonna keep going. All right, so this is our semi-automated version. So I'm going to go now to here to a different campaign called Kim Demo, and we'll start to move along here towards a much more automated version of this. Now, what I want to show you here, though, as I mentioned first, is a couple of things. So this is going to be our new campaign here. As you can see, it's a little bit longer than the one that I've got. And I'm going to take you literally through this entire thing step by step. Another thing is that this one includes text messaging in it, as well as, and I don't know if I will get to it today, but one of the things that I hate in Campaign Builder is that stinking double opt-in thing where you're absolutely limited to their hideous email confirmation email. So I actually have a custom one built here, which is kind of really not necessarily related to GoToWebinar. So I may or may not have time to show you that. If anyone's really interested in how to get a double opt-in on a pretty email, then ask me in the Q&A. But before I jump into this campaign here, which, as you can see, demonstrates a concept we call just-in-time data. It does not use a campaign merge field. I thought I was going to, and that did not work. You can't use a campaign merge field in a post, so I need to take that out. It also uses 7 different Pocket Developer plugins to do all this. So we'll show you all that. But I want to show you how these things work, actually, so that you understand as we are going through it what kind of how, very simply, how they work. So send text, that's we'll get to that. All right, so this is one. this is called custom delay timer. Okay. And so the reason that you would use custom delay timer is, for me, I don't know about you, but I very often have cases where I want to pause the campaign to allow something to happen, but I don't want to wait the entire 15 minutes. And 15 minutes is the lowest delay that we have in built into Campaign Builder. Very often I need a minute, or two. I just need something to just real quick to finish to make sure I don't have an email that goes out with a blank or something. And I just want to pause it for a minute or two. And so that's where you would use custom delay timer. So the way our custom delay, and I will actually show you these. So the way custom delay timer works is it is like all of our plugins. It is a post, an HTTP post, and all of our plugins, just so that you know, get installed except for one, the universal delay timer, but the rest of them all get installed on your server. Now, in this case, this is sitting on my server, right? The APIguys.com. But if this were your plugin, it would be sitting on your server at yoursite.com in a folder, and it's called custom delay timer. So, or custom delay. So it sits here. We have a URL, and in a typical post, we have two parameters. One is how many seconds do you want to delay for? In this case, 60 seconds. And the other is a call name, which needs to be unique. And so what I usually do is just run my fingers across the keyboard to get some kind of random sequence of numbers and letters. Okay, so I have that one, Go 45G. And so what these delays do, anywhere you see me putting a delay in, what comes next is an API goal. Because what's going to happen is it's going in 60 seconds, it's going to trigger this goal. Now, if I look at this goal, you'll see, first of all, that this is my app name, HFF89622, which is up here. You can see it up in the URL. And that this is my Go 45G that I said I was going to trigger in 60 seconds. Now, a lot of people, very many people, are not familiar with this API goal. It's at the very, very bottom of the list. When you go to configure a goal, you have to go all the way down to the bottom. It's the last one. And unless you've actually ventured down here or had reason to venture down here, you may not even know it's down here, right? But it's called an API goal. And it is triggered when it is called via the API, which is and we use that API goal a lot. It functions, the way you should think about it is almost interchangeable with a tag. It acts just like a tag. The only difference is that with a tag goal, you're going to the, to somehow, in the contact record or whatever, and applying the tag, and then it fires. And here we are firing it programmatically, but it acts exactly like a tag. So when this tag gets applied, everything to the right goes. When this gets called, everything to the right goes. So if you think about this delay timer, what's really happening here is, right, it sits for 60 seconds in that case, and then it's like it applied a tag. 60 seconds later, it calls this goal, and then everything to the right will fire. So what I have down here is I have apply a note. Just to show you, the note says I'm awake, right? I am, because this is a delay timer to kind of put your campaign asleep. So let's do that. Let's just, so that you can see kind of how this works. I'm going to go over here to me in campaign, oops, let's get rid of that one. And I'm going to apply a tag to me. First thing, I get rid of that one because we don't need that. Okay, so I'm going to go over here, and the tag I had set up for that was start custom delay timer. Now remember, that thing's going to wait for 60 seconds before it applies. So what's going to happen is I've applied the tag. If I refresh and I look in the campaign builder, in the campaign tab down here at the bottom, just to confirm because I've been testing on me here for a while, it sometimes will begin to delay. Where am I? Get down there. Okay, says that's going to run at 519, which it already did. Okay, so in a minute or so, that's going to run. So we'll come back to that here in just a quick second, okay? And double check and see if that note is there or not. So similarly, okay, so that one's useful, especially if you make a lot of calls to external third-party integration. So if you use, I don't know, Time Fusion, Zen Fusion, Appointment Core, plus this, anything that you're having to call out to a third-party integration, that's when you're going to want to have this little delay in there to make sure it has time to finish. Okay. So I'm going to show you another one. So this is also a delay, which you're going to see a lot. It's going to be everywhere in this campaign. Only what this does is this is called, we call it our universal delay timer. And this sucker is amazing what you can do with it. So just to describe what it does, well, maybe I should go look at this first. This thing is like my best friend. Well, they're all my best friend, but all right. I don't know if it's been a minute yet. It's probably been a minute, don't you think? So we'll refresh my contact and we will see if we go down here to tasks and we look for notes, and there it is. I'm awake. So what happened there was, again, it waited 60 seconds and then it applied a note. Okay. So that's how that custom delay timer will work. All right, now back to this this one. So again, it's configured almost the exact same way, and so in this case, I'm going to assign an owner, and the owner I'm going to assign it to is API guys. Right now, I am currently, let me look over here, I am assigned to, you can see I am assigned to me, right? I am my own owner. So we're going to change that when this one runs. But let me tell you what this one does, because this one is wicked. And it is a big part of what makes this campaign that you're going to see dynamic, okay? So this one, this is the only one that we have currently that does not run on your server. This one actually does run on ours. You put the URL up here just like this, schedule delay. And then you're going to put your app name, and whatever that is. Now, this is so cool. So this, we have these parameters in this one, date, time. By the way, all this stuff is in our documentation, which we are working very hard to get built out. It's still a little thin because we just launched about a month ago on Pocket Developer, but we are working on the documentation. So these, you have date, you have time, you have adjustment, and then you have, again, a call name that it's going to fire when whenever its timer is up. So you can use today so you have to put in a date and you have to put in a time. You can use today and then some adjustment like plus 2 minutes. So if I run this now, which I am going to in a minute, it's going to run 2 minutes from now, because date is, when you say today, that means now, right? In programming language, I can also use now, is another way to say that. If I say now and then plus 2 minutes, it'll run 2 minutes from now. But that's not its real power. So the other power is, so one thing I could do is I can say, I can make any text representation of these. I can say 11:36 p.m. You know, and it'll run on that. I can say September 13th, 2014, and it'll work with that. And I can say, I can say plus 2 days. So that would be 2 days after September 13th. I mean, I can say minus 2 days. You'll see, you're going to see lots of these in my campaign. But the other thing I can do, which starts to get really cool, is I can use, not only can I use any merge field here, So for example, and it doesn't have to have a date or time in it. It can be a text version of that. So in my custom fields, for example, I have like all these, I have your webinar date human form, right? So I can use merge fields here, and it's going to say, oh, okay, I'm going to run this 2 days after whatever date is in here. And I can use a different field, a totally different field, or the same one, for time. But hang on, it gets even cooler, you guys, because we have something built into our plugins called advanced merge field notation. And with our advanced merge field notation, it actually allows you to create merge fields that aren't here out of things like opportunities, companies, appointments, tasks, referrals, invoices, orders, etc. And again, that's all in the documentation. But so imagine here that, this was that I had a date in an appointment, for example, and I wanted to send a text reminder to my staff or my employee to remember that they had an appointment with a client at 5 minutes till 4. Then I could go using our advanced field notation. I could actually just go pull that date and that time out of that appointment. And it can be more than it has. For those of you who've been on our previous calls, it has the ability to find, you can tell it which appointment, even if you have multiples of it. So I have that, and then adjust it minus 5 minutes, whatever, and then fire this. So this is the reason we call this the universal delay timer. It truly is basically universal. Now, almost any date time combination you can think of and stored anywhere in your application, not just your contact records. That appointment one has always been a big frustration for people. People have always paid us to move those appointments over for them, those appointment dates and times, so they can use them in the field timer. But even then, they couldn't work with time, so they could only work with date. But anyway, so I'm going to just go back to this and say today and today, and make this 2 minutes. Well, I don't really need to run this, do I? I mean, you guys, you get the idea, right? It's going to work almost exactly like the delay timer, except that it's running off of date and time instead of number of seconds. But other than that, well, and it has a plus or minus here, but other than that, it works just the same. If somebody yes, yeah, no kidding, right? So if someone really wants to see this run, let me know, and maybe I'll just go over it, and then we can run it in the Q&A if you really want me to. But I think you kind of get the idea there. So this is our delay timer. Now, this one makes my heart warm and fuzzy. So we call this tags on the fly. And so what tags on the fly does, and I love tags on the fly for a couple reasons. Number one, like I said, there's just a lot of time. We use so many tags in Infusionsoft. There is a lot of time in setting these suckers up, and now I don't have to do that. But the other thing is that sometimes, and you'll see an example in this campaign, we have tags that we create that may or may not ever get used. And they just create clutter. They're sitting there with nobody. We created them because they might get assigned, but they actually don't. And then they're just sitting out there. So with tags on the fly, what happens is they don't get created until you need them, and then they're created automatically. So I also like tags on the fly because the folder name is tags fly, and it reminds me of pigs fly. When a pig flies, well, this is kind of like when a pig flies. So the way that this guy works is so what you do is you say tag category, tag name. So I am going to run this one. Okay. So I'm just going to call the tag category new, and I'm going to call the tag name new tag, right? And if I go look over here at my tags, hang on one second. So if I go over here, well, let's start in tag categories. So if I go to tag categories, you will see I do not currently have, if I go to, I do not have a category called new, right? And if we go to tag, I guess I can do it right here. If we go to tags and here, and I say new tag, I don't have that one either, right? So okay, so those are not there. So here's what this does. So what it's going to do is when this runs, okay, every time it runs, in fact, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to say, is there a tag category called new? And if there isn't, create it. And then it's going to say, is there within the tag category called new, is there a tag called new tag? And if there isn't, create it. If there is, well, either way, apply it. So apply it to it's going to, either way, new tag is going to get applied to the contact. But if it doesn't exist already, either it or its category, it's going to create it on the fly, right? And you'll see how this works in about 4 or 5 different places in our dynamic campaign here. So this is called tags on the fly. And I will run this one again just so that you can see. But this one is also very fast. So the tag we're using here to run this is start TOF. So let me come back over here to me and get over here to tags and apply start TOF. So I'm going to give that one just a very quick second here. I'm going to hit refresh. I'm going to say, come on, you can do it. Of course. Oh, well, and so there it is. So here you see we've got new tag in the category of new, neither one of which existed before it ran through that in the campaign. Okay, and the fact that every contact runs through this, it really doesn't matter, because if it existed, if it didn't exist before, the first one to come through it is going to create it, and then after that, each one that comes through after that, it's already going to be there. So then it just becomes like a apply tag, right? It essentially becomes an apply tag. So so that is how tags on the fly works. And then the only other one I have here is send text, which we have. There are a number of different APIs that you can, platforms you can use to send texts. We have, we're hooked up to a couple of them. This one is called Twilio, and Twilio will, well, that somehow got messed up. Twilio will actually, send a text. So anyway, that's Twilio, which you would use as part of your reminder sequence in order to improve the what has been found. By the way, there was an article that just came out yesterday by a guy named Greg Hickman. Greg's kind of considered one of the foremost authorities on mobile and mobile conversions, and he found that the use of text reminders increased the attendance rate by about 45%. For those people who opted in and said they wanted a text reminder, on average, those people attend 45% more than people who did not get a text reminder. That is huge, 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 huge when you work the numbers, right? So, so that's a big, big deal. And by doing it this way, yeah, you can do it through other services, but kind of by taking the middleman out of it, just, to give you an idea. So here's Twilio. Right, so Twilio is $1 a month plus less than a penny per text, and I can, if for those of you who are in the United States, I can send to any country. Well, using Twilio. There's other ones that we have as well, Tel API and some other ones, but that's why you do it for, like an extra penny. You can improve your attendance rates dramatically. And that's not the only thing, of course, that you would use that for. You use it for your appointments. You would use it to let your salespeople know you got a new opportunity. You would use it for um, um, my mind just went blank. Oh, like, we're working on a new podcast, and so a lot of people, because they listen to your podcast on their phone or iPod while they're running or in the car or what have you. Mobile's really big with podcasting, so you might have ways for them to subscribe using mobile, and then you text them back, and things like in this day and age, mobile is, as everyone knows, the really big deal. And so being able to send texts is a really big deal. But I bring that up. It's kind of really secondary to what we're doing here. But I put it in here just to show you guys, so we can talk about that. Okay, so that's kind of just the core, things that we've got. Now let's look at how we put these all together to create this dynamic campaign. Now, this thing could be really 100% dynamic if if I could use a campaign merge field in an HTTP post, but I can't. I even tried putting it in an email and getting the link and putting it in there, and it still doesn't work, right? So that's like one of my big wishes. So for those of you who don't know, a campaign merge field, you use this at the campaign level. Well, here's where I tried it, right? Anything that you want to change throughout the campaign. So like, for example, if you put let's just imagine I have this link. I have a link that it has as a merge field in it, president in my email. And I send out this email, and then now I'm not president anymore. I've been demoted. I'm vice president, right? So I come in here and I change it in my campaign merge field. And then if they open the email again, even after they've opened it, or, whatever, that now they will see vice president, right? It's dynamic, but it also it gives you a place where you can things where you've got it multiple times in a campaign and they change often, like a webinar or webinar ID. That's what it's for. That way you just change it here and you're done. Now, unfortunately, we have that in two places in the campaign, and that merge field doesn't work. But those are the only two things in theory that you really would have to change in this campaign, other than the emails, obviously. But other than that, everything should just work. So those two darn things. So in my example, I start these campaigns off with a tag, okay, which then sends the announcement emails and then takes you to a registration form. You guys all saw that. There's really nothing different about our campaign at that point. This is all going to be the same as well up to this point, right? So here's our Pocket Developer GoToWebinar block. Now I should probably just talk about this for just a quick second, right? Let me just show you. Well, so what you're going to do here, okay? So back to this idea of dynamic and how dynamic is it, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to go, I don't have that window open right this second, but you're going to go to GoToWebinar and you're going to set up your webinar just like you do today, okay? But first of all, rather than sending them to GoToWebinar, which is a horrible branding problem. Let's just talk about that for a quick second, right? Why don't you want them? I said I would talk about that. What are the pros and cons of doing it this way through the campaign builder rather than just, because let's just face it, that's a lot of work. That's a big old campaign that I got there, right? To bring people here instead of sending them, just say, hey, well, I could just send them through GoToWebinar and it'll send them all those reminder emails. It'll even do, an hour before. So, why do it this way? Well, there are a couple of reasons that to me personally are really important. One of which is just a branding issue. Even though they've improved it over the years, the branding of those emails is still crappy, right? I want my emails and my everything to match my brand. I want them to go to my website to fill out the web registration form, not, GoToWebinars. So there is definitely a control or, over your branding issue. But probably the more important one is two things. So, number one, I need to get that information from GoToWebinar into my application, right? So that's one thing. And by just doing it this way, it's already there. They're signing up in my application. Everything that happens after that is being recorded in my application. But here's where it gets really important. So I co-promoted last year a webinar with a fellow RICC, and she started it, and then I kind of came in on the tail end. So she'd already set up the webinar in her GoToWebinar. She had the form and had it set up on her website, right? So in her GoToWebinar account. And now I'm co-promoting this thing. So if I send out emails and Facebook posts and all those things, right? And I send everybody to her page, to her GoToWebinar account, guess what I've got in terms of email addresses? None. Now, of course, I can ask her, but those people didn't give me permission to email them. They gave her permission, right? And so, all of those people would have gone into her database in her GoToWebinar account. So by doing it this way, what I did is I said, could I have your API key for your GoToWebinar account, which she was willing to do. So I had this hooked up to her account in that particular campaign. It was her API key, not Infusionsoft API key, her GoToWebinar API key, her webinar ID. As people were coming through my form and being written into my database and receiving information from me, they were being registered in her GoToWebinar so that they could log in and attend the webinar. So you kind of see how that works, right? So by using the big point besides is really one of control. When you get them all going through your app and your stuff, you have control over everything. You have control over what they see. You have control over when they see it. You're the one getting permissions to text them, to email them, et cetera, et cetera. It's your name that's being put out front, not somebody else's, right? It's a chance to get your name out in front of them. So that's why I do it this way. And yeah, it is a little bit of work to get it set up front, but then once you do, then you're good to go. So okay, so that's a little bit of a long side road there on GoToWebinar, but all right, so there's our registration, and then of course the 120-second delay, just to make sure that it's had time to get back to and write, because it is writing into your contact record the webinar title, which, by the way, back to dynamic, you're setting up in GoToWebinar, the webinar date and time, which you're setting up in GoToWebinar, and then the webinar join URL, which GoToWebinar creates on registration and stores in GoToWebinar. We are grabbing that, bringing that back, and putting that in a custom field so that we can email it to our attendees, right? So that's where all that is going. It takes a little second for that all to happen, which is the reason for the delay. And then if you look at that delay, then it's just all that's saying is I need 120 seconds to make sure that's all goes through properly. And then off we go. So then after 120 seconds, it wakes up and we move on. Now, these are all the same. So let me just talk about these for a second. So this is any date, anywhere, because this is a big part of making this dynamic, actually. So as I said, what any date, anywhere does is it translates. dates. Okay, so this is for everyone's familiar with custom fields in Infusionsoft, I presume. So this is what in Infusionsoft is called a date time field. Okay, it is set up as a date time field, and that's Infusionsoft's like preferred format. So it has in there both the date and the time. Now, but when I send you an email, if you've ever seen a date, an Infusionsoft date, give me a second here. If you had ever seen, it would look like it's really ugly. It looks like 0911 th something. I'm probably doing this wrong, and then like 180000. Anyway, like it's just this, like big ugly thing, which you can decipher it, but you sure aren't going to put that in an email to your attendees, right? But that's how it's being stored here in Infusionsoft in this your webinar date. So what we want to do is we actually want to put this into a nice format. So the email that you all got said, your webinar on September 11th, 2014. 2014, right? Actually, it said Thursday, September 11th, 2014. And the reason I know that is because that's what this code means. This says, and I'll tell you where to find this in just a second. This says Thursday, right? This is the day. This is the month. This is the J, little j means like, 13 comma and then the year. And so basically what any date will take, here's what Pocket Developer does, you guys. And I hesitate to even say this because as soon as I do, people get freaked out. But really what Pocket Developer is doing is it's writing code for you in the background without you having to know how to write code, which is kind of cool. And it's writing PHP for you. So php.net has all these date functions, and hopefully I got the right one. I did not. Anyway, I have to find that. I should have had that up before I got in here. So there's a whole list of all the different ways, little codes that you can use. All those, that plus and that minus that that universal delay timer does is all in here too. All the different ones that are acceptable, and there's tons of them. My apologies that I don't have that up for you, but I will put it in the notes. So these are just these little codes, and if once you know the codes, then you can essentially put those in here and format these dates and times any way you want. In like crazy ways, and then put them wherever you want. So in this case, we're putting that in a field called your webinar date human form so that you can merge that into an email and make that look pretty. And it won't matter when your webinar is, because no matter what date you schedule it for, it's going to come back and be in the proper format. This actually puts the time in a text field for the same reason, so that you can put in your email 5 o'clock, PM Eastern time, right? Same thing. This one is doing, this is for your field timer. Okay, it's putting it in the Infusionsoft format that Infusionsoft likes, so that it can run in your field timers for you. And then this version here is going to put it in. Oh, now this one's hairy. So let me tell you what this one does. This is you guys, now I don't want your hair to light on fire, but I do want you to know what's possible. And and even if you like right off the bat go, whoa, if you want to do something like this and you're not sure how to do it and the documentation isn't clear, some of you would be adventurous and be like, yeah, I'll figure that out. Some of you would be like, well, but I'll tell you what this does. This is a concept we call just-in-time data, okay? So forgetting this one for just a second, okay? We'll come back to this. But what this is doing is it's just saying, I'm going to take that webinar date, today, September 11th, And I'm going to put it in this format, 2014-09-14, and I'm going to put it in middle name. Now, why would I want to put it in middle name? Well, how many of you ever run out of custom fields? We are always in short supply of custom fields. And I'm not going to keep this for long. In fact, you're going to see by the time we're done, middle name will be blank again. But I call this stashing. I'm going to stash some data in a field. And in this case, I do not know if I ran this on me or not, but we'll look. No, it's not here. But what if I had been in this campaign? This would be this would be right here, okay? And it's just stashed here because I have tons of custom fields, and plus it's just easier for me to stash it here, right? Because I'm going to use this later on. I'm going to actually merge this into some replay links and some other things again, so that I don't have to touch the links that I send you guys later, because they're all formatted exactly the same, and it's going to grab part of those names. Oh, this actually also is going to get used in tags on the fly as well. So as part of the tag names. So this is part of what makes it dynamic, but I'm just going to stash it here, and then at the end of the campaign, I'm going to turn it back to blank. Okay, so that's sort of the idea of that. Another kind of handy thing that you can do with all these guys. So so without kind of, so that's why it's putting it there on middle name. Now this one is quite interesting, because what this one does, this request, all of our plugins have the ability to do this. And if I show you this, and what it is, but before I show it to you, is the concept is chaining. Okay, in a script, if you actually could write PHP, we can do this super simple. And it's something that we do a lot, where you find something like an ID or whatever, and then you keep passing it along, and you keep doing things to it, right? And it's called chaining. So actually, we have the ability to do that here as well. And this is what we're doing. So this is another one of our plugins called AnyText, AnyText Anywhere. And so what this is doing is it's actually AnyText is taking the result, right, of that, which was that 2014 09-11. That's this part right here, and adding it into this. See this text to save? I'm creating text, and the text I'm creating is this link right here, which is your webinar replay link. But it's not just any old webinar replay link. It has merged into it that 2014-09-11 that we just stuck in middle name, but we're also passing it here to AnyText, so it can write that also to a field called link to handout. That's called chaining. It's advanced stuff, yeah, admittedly, but there are times where, in order to do what you want to do in a campaign like this one, to really make it completely, totally, I don't have to touch this and it just runs, you kind of need to do that. So that would be one of those things where you would be like, oh, I think this is where I need one of those chaining things. Can you guys help me out? If you don't want to, eventually, once you get your head around it, it's not as hard as it looks. I should not show you guys this, because it really does look hard. But if I explain this to you, which our documentation does, and what all this stuff means, which is just a query string, you would be like, oh, I get it. These are just like those key value pairs in your HTTP post. But anyway, I'm probably making that worse, so I'll just move on. But anyway, that's what that thing does. We're actually writing it. What we're doing here is we're actually writing this in two places at the same time. Okay, so that's that any date. And then we wait for 10 seconds to make sure that all those guys had time to complete. So you guys are starting to get the sense what I mean here, right, of a completely dynamic campaign. Now, here's where another place, okay? So 10 seconds goes by, we wake up again. Okay, now this tag, okay, this is our business unit tag, which I apply to everybody. So it's already there. I'm not going to do this on the fly. When you come in, because I run multiple businesses out of the same application, so I use a business unit tag to say who's who and which business are they associated with. But this is our tag on the fly. Now, we have a bunch of these, but here's so for every event I do, I have 4 tags. I have event emailed, okay, which is what was when you get your first email saying you're on my list, and you're going to get an email. You got an email that says I'm having an event. So you have event emailed. You have event registered. Okay, so for those of you who registered, you will have an event registered tag. And by the way, so let me just show you what I mean so that this will make more sense to you. Also, why I was doing what I was doing here. See this tag? 2014-09-11 PD demo. Event registered, event not attended, event emailed, and there's another one we're going to create on the fly, which you're going to see in a minute. So this is my format that I use for all of my events. I do this thing, which look familiar. This is what we stashed in middle name, and then the name of the event, something that will like tip me off to what it was. 4 different categories, okay? So what I do is I don't want to set all those up every time, right? Because then I have to touch this thing every time I want to run a new webinar. No. So what we do is we say the category is event registered, which is always going to be there, but we have to put it there anyway, because what we're after is this. You see this contact.middle name, which remember is that date format I use, plus added to the back end of that PD demo, which is what creates that tag in that category on the fly as you guys start to come through my campaign. Okay, so there's our event registered tag because you did register, right? So that's what comes next after we set your dates. You're here, right? We're still setting stuff up here. And so we created and applied your event registered tag. And then now finally, right, we send your confirmation email, which because of all the things that I just did, can have a very nice, right, merged in webinar title, the join URL, blah, 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 right? All right, so you guys get all that. And then we're going to throw on another delay. Now, this one, however, is the first time you've seen, this isn't a custom delay timer. This is a universal delay timer. Remember, I told you this is throughout. So what this is doing is this is saying, all right, whew, we got all that stuff set up. We got them registered. We send them their confirmation email. We've got nothing to do now until 1 hour before the webinar. Actually, I forgot my 1 day before. Oops, I forgot something. But anyway, same idea. 1 hour before the webinar, I need to do something. So I'm just going to sleep this campaign until 1 hour before. So how do I do that? Well, here's my webinar date, and here's my webinar time. Now, by the way, this would have worked just as well because that's a date time field. So I could have put them both in here. It doesn't matter. Adjustment -1, and 1 hour before this date and this time, I want to kick off this API call 1 hour before, right? So it's going to sit there. It doesn't matter if it sits there a day, a week, a month, a year, 2 years. It's going to sit and it's going to wait. And 1 hour before that date, whenever that happens, it's going to fire and trigger this goal, which says, okay, let's go send our 1 hour reminder. So here's our 1 hour reminder email. And then same thing, okay? Now, but this time you'll notice there is no adjustment, and that's because that's optional, right? We took it out because I don't want it to fire. There is no adjustment. I'm saying fire this on exactly at the webinar date and time. And after you've done that, hit this call, okay? Trigger this sucker right here. So that's this guy. Okay, good. So once that guy gets sent, same thing, right? Now, oh wait. I got behind myself. Hang on. Oops. Just drag this guy over here. Okay. So this is where we are. We sent our reminder at start time. And then one more. Okay, we got to wait. So we've sent our starting now. So what comes next 4 hours after the webinar, I want to go check attendance. So now it's still webinar date time, but now I'm saying plus 4 hours. Okay, fire the next one. So, okay, cool, 4 hours after we're done. Okay, it's sitting, it's waiting, and it fires the next one. Now, what happens now? Now, this is where, again, this starts to be a bit different than what you saw previously. And I want to talk about this too. So here what happens in my other one, I was just using like a kind of a generic attended, did not attend tag because it was kind of a pain. But here what I do is this. So I'm going to say, all I'm going to do here is 4 hours after the webinar. So we've had time to end. I'm going to go to GoToWebinar, and I'm going to say, GoToWebinar, for this webinar, this code, I need you to check the attendance, and I want you to apply 1313 for everyone who's here and 1315 for everyone who's absent. Now, if you look in here at my tags, what you'll find, this is the generic, okay? So you'll see that I have 2 tags in a category I call process. Generic did not attend and did attend tags 1313 and 1315, okay? Which is what GoToWebinar, or the GoToWebinar plugin, is going to apply to everybody 4 hours after tonight's webinar, okay? So all it's saying is you were absent, you were present, 1313, 1315. I use these for everything over and over and over and over and over again, which is why they're in a category for me that I call process, okay? And then that's it. Okay, now, then what does it do? It's going to break into these 3 tag goals. So let's just talk about canceled first, okay? Now, had somewhere along the line, we wanted to cancel you, actually, I have another one called canceled, okay? Also in process, also generic, that I use for everything. So if somewhere along the line you had sent me an email and said, you know what, actually I'm not so interested in GoToWebinar, so just cancel me so that I won't keep getting all of your emails, please. So I would have applied a tag to you process tag called canceled. And then here's what would happen. I was just looking to see if a certain person was on this call because she really wanted to see this. And of course she's not, but hopefully she'll catch the replay. So what happens is, okay, my generic tag gets applied. So because of where it is over here, of course, you guys all know, right? As soon as I do, a goal is fulfilled, everything to the left of it stops, okay? So no matter where you were, whether you were on 5 minutes into this campaign or you were sitting here, in the reminders, whatever, it would say, stop that, start you here, go to the right, okay, jump you all the way up here, go to the right, and then I'm going to create my event canceled tag on the fly. Now, notice this, right? So what I'm saying is, again, same format, 2014-09-11 PD demo in a category called event canceled. But here's the thing. If none of you canceled for this event, which none of you did, doesn't mean you didn't show, but you didn't call me to cancel, I have no 2014-09-11 event canceled tag. It's not cluttering up my tags. I don't have a bunch of stuff, right, that didn't get used. If and when someone cancels, this tag will get created. Until then, no. Okay, so I create this tag, right, on the fly, and then over here in housekeeping, we'll just go ahead and do it. I remove all of those tags, all 3 of those tags, those generic tags, so that I can use them again. Canceled, did not attend, did attend, right? Just remove them all. And then, oh, by the way, here, we're going to use any text to wipe clean the middle name field by leaving this blank, text to save, middle name blank. That is going to set middle name back to blank. So now at the end of this campaign, I've done all my housekeeping here, and everything's like back to normal. The exact same thing happens here. If you attend, you get the thanks for coming replay, and this tag is also on the fly, only it's for event attended. Of course, we know those are going to get created, but the point being, that way I don't have to create them. I don't have to worry about them. I don't care what date it is. I don't care what time it is. I just know that these things are all going to get set up as needed, and all the dates and everything are going to be perfect. All I got to do is set the webinar up itself, and everything else here should just go, right? So that's how did not attend. And then we actually, as sort of at least I do, I always put a kill switch at the end of my campaigns and my campaign sequences. And there are a lot of reasons why I want to do this. Yeah, I could actually just go look at everybody and like say stop campaign, but if I have a kill switch, which is just a tag, then it doesn't, if they're running in other sequences, other swim lanes in the same campaign, it doesn't take them out of those. It doesn't kill them in those. There's just a lot of reasons why I might want to do it this way. To me, it feels a little less nuclear than the one up in the action menu. So I always give this to myself as an out, because if I use this, then I can like always, anyway, I don't know. It feels like I can take them out, put them back in, and we do some things with that. Now, one other comment about this real quick, because someone did ask about this, and they asked because they are unable to do this in Plus This, who also has a GoToWebinar integration, as many of you may know. So, and the question was, so what about a series of webinars? If you don't know, GoToWebinar actually has the ability to create a series, meaning you set it up one time, it's one quote webinar, but it occurs over a series, 3 dates, 4 dates, 5 dates, every Thursday night, whatever it is, but it's only a quote single webinar with a single webinar ID. And most of the other integrations can only get attendance from the first one without actually having to go in and like hand manually force it to go again, like by go change the dates and then force it to run. And but because of the universal delay timer, you actually don't have to do that. You can set it up so that you've got in your custom fields, you've got the all 3 dates. Let's imagine it was a 3 session deal. And because universal delay timer can work off of all of those simultaneously, it doesn't really care, then all you would be doing actually would be you would go in and out of this group here, this whole thing right here, like 3 times. You would just replicate this 3 times, boom, 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 off to the right before you got to housekeeping, or however many times you needed to in order to create the series. Now, if for some reason, like let's just say I had, first of all, I don't know that I would set it up this way, but if I didn't have a finite end to my webinars, like I was just going to do this webinar, which I do intend to every Thursday night, I would actually then set my webinar up as individual webinars, because I don't know when it's going to end. Webinar series are more like, I did a PHP class a year ago or something, for everybody, and there were 8 sessions. We knew what the 8 sessions were in advance. They were 8 days, and so you could set that up and have a known ending. But if I don't know when it's going to end or how many of them I'm going to have, then I wouldn't do it this way. Then what I would do is I would create a loop that actually just looped back through this every time, which is also very easy to do now because it is dynamic. So that would be how I would handle something that was, quote, the same webinar, but with an unknown ending point. So that is the webinar campaign. I've got these other things down here that I was going to go through with you. Before I do that and take questions, because Does anyone have any questions for me about all that they would like me to answer? Does that like make sense? Is it, how are you feeling? How are you feeling about all that? Any like dying to know questions or any things that didn't make sense to you there? Or how can I do this in use cases in GoToWebinar that I didn't cover that you're curious about? Okay. So far so good, I guess. So I'm gonna just real quick here go through these real quick, and then I will take whatever questions you guys have on whatever topic, this or any. So here's our line that I threw in now because of that article, that 45% article. For text reminders increase attendance by 45%. So the way that this works is this registration form right here would have a thank you page on it, of course. So here's the thank you page. So when you set it up, instead of being a thank you page, it's actually webinar step 2. And you want to pass the contact's information to that thank you page. So, and what webinar step 2 is just another Infusionsoft form, right? It's this. So actually I should have an arrow going here that says form step 2. So, and I do this on purpose because you don't want to ask them about the text reminder up front, because it's just that cuts down on your conversion rate, right? So a number of people, like everyone knows, the more things you ask for up front, then the fewer people fill out your form. So what we do is we say, all right, well, I'm going to get the webinar registration done, and then I'm going to ask you, would you like a text reminder? So on step 2, this is my quote thank you page. Okay. It says, would you like to receive a text reminder? Now I've got their email field hidden, and I can do that, of course, because we elected to pass their contact information to the thank you page. So I don't need to ask them to put their information in again. All I need is a hidden email field that gets filled in. I say, would you like a text reminder? Yes or no? If so, put in your mobile number, finish registration, which this time actually will, in fact, take them to a thank you, a real live, thank you page. Which you guys have probably seen, just like I would have normally. I just put an extra step in there. Now, so what happens if they said yes? If they said no, nothing's going to happen, actually. But if they said yes, they're going to go this way. So this is actually a dummy sequence. There's nothing in here. And the reason I needed this dummy sequence in order to be able to get this next thing, because I can't have two goals next to each other. So this says, this is the tag that got applied if you said yes here, that yes, you did in fact want a text reminder, right? So yes, I do. So dummy sequence, so if you said yes, it's going to go boom to here. If not, you'll just live here in this dummy sequence, right? You'll never come out of this dummy sequence. So, but if you said yes, then it's going to say, oh, okay. So we don't want to send you a text reminder until 20 minutes before the webinar. So the next thing is going to be, first we're going to send you a text, a confirm text, because this is definitely, you guys should know, like best practice. Some of the other text providers, Social Fuse, for example, I know like makes you send this immediate confirm email. Some allow it to be optional, but best practice is you always immediately send them an email, just so that they, number one, remember what it looks like, so that when they get yours later, 3 days later, 2 weeks later, they're not, what is this? Because you think spam laws are bad. You should see if the FCC gets a hold of you. Those actually have teeth, right? So this is just to say, again, this is immediately. This is say, got it. You will receive a reminder 20 minutes before the webinar to just let them know what that's going to look like and what number it's going to come from, and so forth. So when it does come, it'll already be in an existing number. It won't be the first time they've seen it. That's really important. Then we're going to throw on another wait. We're going to wait until 20 minutes before the webinar. Okay, and on 20 minutes before the webinar, of course, we're going to resume and send our text reminder from, and we're using Twilio. This is actually, this is a test going, but it would instead be this. You'd put first name, phone, whatever, wherever you store, wherever you store mobile would be here, like that. And then API guys reminder, the webinar starts in 20 minutes. Okay, so there's my reminder, and then that's just done. Okay, out the back end. So that's how we also are going to improve, hopefully, our attendance rates by starting to implement these text reminders as well. And that is it. That is what I had to show you. So that is my our totally dynamic GoToWebinar campaign. So with that, what questions do you guys have? What can I answer? What can I show you? What did you get? What did you not get? You guys are very quiet. Okay. So how can I make custom field appointment date communicate with an actual Infusionsoft calendar? When I set up field timer delay, it is based on the date that is set in custom appointment date, but when I add an appointment to the contact, it will not communicate with my appointment field and vice versa. I would like to avoid entering data twice. Right, exactly. So that is correct. That is the fact that Campaign Builder does not communicate with appointments is one of the things that we get asked about and get asked to do for people all the time. Which is why we created Any Date, or one of the reasons why we created Any Date. So what you have to do to make this work is this is where that concept of stashing information came from. Okay, because you cannot merge anything into Campaign Builder, directly merge on the fly, you except for what is in those merge fields, okay, for your field timers. So what you have to do is it's a multi-step process. What you do is you pull the date that you want and need from the appointment using either a script, which is what we used to write for all of our clients, or now we just have a plugin, Any Date, that will do that. So what Any Date will do is Any Date will say, you can say, go get the appointment date for where the appointment the appointment name says initial consultation, and the date is greater than blah blah blah, right? You can apply some filters to it, and you could say, find that appointment and bring that date back and write it into a date field, so that I can then use it as a merge field in order to create. So you know what? That's like all really confusing. So let me just show you. So here's what I would do. Like, we'll just use middle name. I'm going to try to do this really fast. So somewhere in your sequence, you would have something. I got to remember our advanced notation. So you would have, I'm going to have to look this up because I can never, you would have a HTTP post, and that post would call, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to copy this. So not like this. Just to make this faster, I'm going to say sequence, copy from campaign. I'm going to say I want to copy from this one, Kim demo, and the thing I want to copy is, where are all those darn dates? Hang on. Here, I think. No, that's not them. Yeah, it is. Whew, got lucky. Okay, so get rid of these guys. I only need one. This way I don't have to think about the format or the URL. I can just grab this one. Okay, so what you're going to do here, all right, so we have any date here. We have the contact ID. Now, so the first question is, where are we going to get this? Where are we going to get this date? That's the wrong format, but anyway, that's okay. Where are we going to get this date? So this is where it gets kind of tricky, okay? So if I come over here, and this is actually our store. I don't want that. I want PDEV documentation. So I'm on our website, Learning Center. PDEV documentation. PDEV is our shorthand for Pocket Developer. Okay, come on. And if I go over here, one of the things that you will find is this, first in the list is something called Advanced Merge Field Notation. So if you come to Advanced Merge Field Notation, it will tell you that it allows us to specify Infusionsoft fields in a specific one-to-many record, such as opportunities, tasks, appointments, referrals, orders, and invoices, etc. And then we can use them as merge fields so they can be acted on. Okay, so, and then this actually gives that, that notation. So the notation is table, then field, then filter by where necessary, order by, and then we have like these qualifiers and so on and so forth. So I believe there is an example here that I could use. There's not. Of course there's not. Okay, so what I'm going to do is show you one other thing. Okay, hopefully you guys aren't going to get lost here. So what you need to know is, remember I told you that Pocket Developer is actually writing code for you, okay? So even though you don't have to know how to write the code, you need to know a few little developer-y things, okay? So if you go to the Infusionsoft Help Center and you go to Developers and you go to Table Documentation, if you've never been there, what this is this actually tells you the names of all the tables that in the database that make up that Infusionsoft runs on. And when you know these, then you can plug these guys into everything, right? So here, like the one everybody works with and would be most familiar with is the contact table. Okay, you're not used to calling it a table, maybe you call it a record or whatever, but these fields will look totally familiar to you. Address 1, address 2, anniversary, assistant, name, city, company, ID, blah, 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 right? Fax, last name, etc. These are the database names for all of those things, right? And they're kind of close to what it is that we call them. You know, so here's affiliate, here's credit card charges, company, etc. All right, so what we want here to answer this question is we actually want the appointments. Okay, so the fastest way for me to find that is to just say, oops, appointments. So that tells me that that's in a table called contact action. And if I look in contact action, you're going to see, ooh, okay, I've got an action date, an action description, an action type, and I've got this thing here called is appointment. And that has to be a 1, and that means it's an appointment. So here's what I need. Okay, I'm going to take your date, which is this action date right here. This is your appointment date, and I'm going to take is appointment. The two things I need to build this sucker. And I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say, wherever you are, I'm going to change this to, instead of contact, the table name is contact action. And what I want, the date I want is called what? It was called, copy it, action date. Okay, so the date I want is contact action, action date. Now there's a little bit more to it. Okay, so remember I told you we have these things like filter by and stuff. So we have to say, we'll just put one qualifier in here. Okay, we'll just do one. So what we're going to say is we're going to say filter by, okay, which looks like which looks like this, filter by. So I'm going to copy and paste. By the way, I'm a big fan of copy paste. Why remember these things when you don't need to? So filter by, not stage ID 59. What did we say that was? Is appointment. Has to be 1, and 1 means true. Okay, so what that just did is that said, get me from the appointment, because and the reason I did that is appointments and tasks are the same. They're both in contact actions. If it has a 1, it's an appointment. If it doesn't, it's a task, right? So I said, go to the contact action table where tasks and appointments are, pull the action date, which is the date, and the filter it by is appointment 1, and then this is the wrong format. But anyway, and then write it in whatever, middle name, okay? And so when you run this, what it's going to do is it's going to stick that date in middle name. And it's going to store it there until you do everything you want to do with it, okay? You merge it, you do all the things you want with it, and then you can wipe it or not, right? And then reuse it. But that's and it seems really convoluted, and it is, it absolutely, I would love to just be able to not have to do all this, but the only way you can get to all this data that is stashed away in these other tables that are inaccessible to Campaign Builder is to do what I just to do what we've done, which is to create all these tools to go get them, put them in the place where they can be merged, which is somewhere in the contact table. Do what you need to do with them for however long you need to do it with them, and then wipe that stash field out. Now it's still sitting in the the appointment record. You haven't touched that. You are merely putting it into a place where you can actually. Middle name's a bad example, by the way, because this is a date. I apologize. So I stash a lot of date times in or dates and anniversary. If I want to run a date timer on it, I stash it in anniversary and then I change it back. So that's what we mean by just-in-time data. It means I pull it from wherever I need it. I use just in time, just when I need it, not before. I don't use up a bunch of custom fields by keeping it here, because that's why we run out of our 100 custom fields. I put them where it's supposed to be in the opportunity, the whatever. I go get it. I use it, and then I wipe it out. So that way I can, instead of having bazillions of custom fields, I can just have a couple where I stash things, and I stash them in all unused fields all the time. And then that is how we do that. Really long-winded way of answering your question, but that's exactly how we do it, and that is exactly what people used to pay us a lot of money to write scripts to do for them, and now you can just do it yourself. And oh, by the way, if this is something you choose to pursue, we are more than we are definitely happy to help you. We're trying to create as much good documentation as we can, but in the beginning you're going to be like, what, how do I do this? And then once you do it 2 or 3 times, you'll be like, oh man, I know I can go get this, and I can go use that, and I can, like all of a sudden you become like a kid in the candy store. But at first you're like, well, I just want to do this one thing. Can you help me? Sure, we can. Happy to. And then when you want to do the next thing, we'll tell you how to use it to do that too. Because really this little toolkit makes it so that you can do an amazing number of things. So, Diana, I hope that helped rather than just confused the heck out of you. But I've seen your campaign, girl, so I'm actually thinking that actually did not confuse you at all. Okay. Yeah, would this work with other webinar programs like AnyMeeting? It will not. No, it will not. So this is specific to GoToWebinar. Obviously, it starts with us setting up a GoToWebinar, using the GoToWebinar integration here to go get this information. Now, does that mean that you couldn't have a version of this for AnyMeeting? We don't, but it would appear that AnyMeeting has an API. And so if Web API add-ins showcase, maybe they have an API. This looks like a somewhat limited API, but assuming excuse me, that they do, then, if we were to build a plugin that did what the GoToWebinar plugin does, then all the rest of this would absolutely apply. And it still kind of applies because yeah, you can't go get the date and stuff automatically, but you could just hard code that part. Not ideal, but anyway, and then go from there with the rest of this still being applicable, right? But yeah, to make the whole thing dynamic with a different webinar system, you would have to have a API and either a script or a plugin to get that done. Scott says, for the custom delay timer, can I set up a campaign with a multitude of the API goals, etc., so I can essentially call on the individual timers by using tags and goals? Exactly. That's exactly what you do, Scott. Now, so one of the things I tell people in our documentation is, you'll notice all of these are, all of my delay timers have really unique call names, and that's on purpose. Now, I happen to be doing this linearly. If you listen to Paul Sokol, who's like the campaign builder guru at Infusionsoft, Paul believes that every campaign can be written basically in a straight line. And when I first heard that, I was like, no way. But he made the argument, and I was like, wow, actually, my campaigns used to be like sprawled all over the place. And I realized that he's kind of right, actually, because when you understand that something that's called stops everything to the left of it, then all you got to do is like keep putting things to further down to the right. But anyway, so my campaigns, I've been trying to like do the Paul Sokol thing and make them long and flat. But that said, right, a lot of times what you'll have kind of more like this, where you're going to have all these different starts and stops and different campaigns and whatever. And as long as you use unique calls here for the custom delay timer or the universal delay timer, doesn't matter what, you can literally call those from anywhere, which you can use them to, pause, jump people into other campaigns, etc. So, yeah, I mean, they're really flexible, but the reason I say to people, don't use something unique that you're unlikely to accidentally duplicate, is because otherwise you're going to get some really unintended consequences when things start to fire off all over your campaigns because, you've used the same. It's almost like like I said, API goals are pretty much kind of almost interchangeable with tag goals. And we all know we've all applied a tag that we didn't realize had another tag goal somewhere else, and we apply it, and like all of a sudden things start going off and we're like, whoa, what's happening? Where is that coming from? Right. And it's because so same thing here, right, is, if you name these uniquely, then you can have them moving all over the place for sure. Yep, absolutely. So it's pretty slick, actually. I think it is anyway. I just love it. All right, let's see, what else? Yes, sweet. That's what I think too. Thank you. This is, it is admittedly a really different way, a little bit of a paradigm shift for everybody, right? But the biggest paradigm shift is just to be thinking like suddenly, really, if you can, I don't want to say if you can dream it, you can do it, because there are a lot of things still that do have to be done with scripts, but not within Campaign Builder now. It just opens up a whole new world, because it basically, some of the other things that we do, by the way, and I'll just tell you, I need to wrap this thing up. We are way over time. So I'll just give you the last couple things. So this here on our store page, it actually explains like what I think are the 5 superpowers of Pocket developers. One is this ability to access, update, and merge data that's stored in opportunities, appointments, task orders, invoices, referrals, tag descriptions, and more. The other is the ability to access, update, and merge data stored in contacts other than the one going through the campaign. we have this thing called override, so that actually you can you can be going through the campaign, but I can be updating your referral, your referrer, for example. I can, with override, which this is crazy helpful for things like referral programs and things, and all these things where people say, I want to be able to put sign multiple people up for an event, things like that. A third one is the ability to delay and resume using any increment or description of time, which you just saw, for example, 1 hour before contact appointment time. The fourth is all these new goal scenarios, which you haven't seen yet, for new contact created, new opportunity created, new appointment, new task, etc. We call those pseudo goals. And then the fact that you can reuse these over and over and over in as many apps as you want. That's what I think are our superpowers. So if you use webinars a lot and you are interested, I did, like I have done the last couple of weeks, I put together a package for you called the GoToWebinar package. And because one of the things we have at the very bottom is we have an installation where you can actually buy all these plugins and we will install it for you for like, I don't know, 100 something. We have a fee for like putting that whole campaign together for you. But I actually put together a package that includes, that's discounted, includes all the plugins, and as well as complimentary installation and configuration of the campaign. It includes the GoToWebinar, the any date, any text, tags on the fly, the universal delay timer, the custom delay timer, and the configuration, all of which, if you bought a la carte, would be $17.77, 17% discount if you want. And again, you can use it over and over and over. We're only going to have 5 of those. So that's my package. If you have any interest, just go to our store page. Anywhere it says Pocket Developer, you can click on that. It'll take you to the store, and you will see this GoToWebinar package right here, and then all the rest of the plugins are here. Basic, core, and just the core. These are the ones that have like superpowers. These are the ones that can do contact overrides and all those crazy filters, and work with opportunities and all that advanced field notation and stuff. That's on the core functionality. These are our pseudo goals with listeners, third-party apps, etc. We're working on more plugins, lots more. We have like 30 more on the roadmap, so that we're trying to bring out as fast as we can. And so hopefully, if you find yourself trying to do something in Campaign Builder that you can't, you'll hopefully think, I bet Pocket Developer can do that, because chances are it can. And if you don't think it can, call me, schedule some time with me, and we can talk it over, and I can probably either show you how it can or not. But most of the time I can usually, as some of the people on this call will figure out, I can usually attest. Jennifer, yes. So Jennifer wants to know, can you use these on multiple apps as an ICC? Yes, that is why we did it this way, actually. I hate the idea of black box, where you guys can't see this code lives on your server. It gets installed and configured. You don't have to worry about any of that. Pocket Developer drops it on your server, installs the SDK, installs all that nasty API stuff for you. It's really easy, and it lives on your server. You paid for it. You own it. You can use it on as many apps as you want. That's up to you how you choose to do that. Whether now, some people will choose to have their clients buy their own version because they don't really want, because we won't update theirs, obviously, only yours, but totally up to you. Yeah, and so if you have multiple apps, you can use it in all of your apps. If you want to use it on client apps, I absolutely encourage you to do that. It is exactly why I designed it this way, so that you can do that. Now, we do have an affiliate program that gives you 15%, so that might be a little incentive for you to get your customers to buy their own version, and that way they get their own support and their own updates. But if you choose to use it, either while you're developing or what have you, then totally up to you. You are welcome to do that. Not only that, the code is absolutely not encrypted. It lives on your server. If you want to take that code and have your developer modify it further, or you want to open it up and learn from it or whatever, then you're free to do that too. I'd encourage you to make a copy in case it gets messed up. But I really believe in open source. I really believe that by making all these plugins on everybody's server where nobody can see it and you can only use it on certain things, it is not helping the community, because what we need, right, is Infusionsoft to grow. And for Infusionsoft to grow, the only way that is going to happen is an open source, where people are encouraged to create and do new and crazy things with the application that they didn't think was possible, and to limit everybody in what they can do, because I'm afraid you're gonna use this on somebody else's app. I just think that's not helpful. So that's not the way we built ours. So anyway, that's why it's done this way with posts and one-time pricing. Okay, off my soapbox now. Thank you for the question, Jennifer, and everybody who asked questions tonight. I'm going to let you guys go. I would be happy and love to sit here and talk to you all night, because this is my most exciting favorite topic, in case you can't tell. But I am gonna stop. We're way over time now. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. If you need help with anything, you want to know how to do anything, there are buttons all over the website. Every one of our products has a button that says ask him how to do something. So there it is. Hit me up. I'd love to brainstorm with you and strategize with you and see if I can help you do things that you didn't think you could do before. You guys have a great evening, and thanks so much for being here. We'll talk soon.